1988.
The moving picture theater was over on the corner. It's been there for years. When they built the new building, they took it out of there.
I recall it still standing in 82. Am I right?
What?
I recall it was still standing in 82. The movie theater, right?
The moving picture was there ever since I was here.
Yeah. And the
when
building.
they built the new building, they tore it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing. Up where the church is, Our Lady's Church, the big church.
Yes, on Washington Street.
That's Adams Street.
Yeah.
Down at the end of Adams Street, you ever remember Ponzi?
The fraud.
Ponzi?
The fraud who had what were they, the foreign exchange coupons?
Ponzi had, everybody was there putting money in his office down there.
You mean he had an office here in Newton?
He had an office down at the corner of...
Near Our Lady's Church?
He had an office down at the end of the street on the corner of Watertown Street. Ponzi.
So that would have had to have been in the middle 20s?
Every day the people were lined up for blocks in there giving them money. They was on Watertown Street and they was on Lunscombe Street there where the church is. The man took a lot of money out of Newton. I don't know whatever happened to him. Ponzi. Outside of his office there was a big clock. I think the clock is still hanging there.
Okay, now that's the office.
That was Ponzi, one of Ponzi's office.
Now,
and he was there every day. He was walking up and down the sidewalk with a light felt hat on, talking to everybody when they're putting the money in there. Ponzi.
I remember he started in Boston's North End,
That's right, but he had
so he was so successful he came and established offices around?
He had one of his offices.
Well, this was a community even back then known for wealth, right?
He took a lot of money out of Newton, a lot of money.
Now, how long do you think that office was there? 6 months?
Oh, I don't know who was there.
Because the bubble burst in about a year.
There's a lot of even people don't ever remember the place being there.
It seems logical, as if he wanted to get people to invest, that he would come to a place like Newton.
I'm telling you something, he took a lot of money out of Newton. They were lined up a block long waiting to get in there to get money.
And were these people, people who could spare the money or were looking for good investments? Or do you think
rich, poor, he took a lot of money out of the poor people out of Newton.
Oh, you think they were people who were not experienced in doing investments?
And he took a lot of money out of a lot of people's got money, too, out of there. You'd be surprised the way that place was lined up every day down there.
Well, he had a lot of good publicity when he started, right? And he got a lot of people in. But I think it was only Boston and the surrounding area. I think he must have been going for
Do you
more.
remember her, Buzz?
Of course I do.
Did you ever see him?
No. I'm a bit younger. I wasn't born until right before the Second World War.
Yeah.
But everybody knows when you read about the, let's say, the less than legal goings on in Boston, that Ponzi started here. He had some kind of scheme in which there were international exchange coupons.
Yeah.
And he was going to ship them back and forth and make 10 cents on each one. And
the man took a lot of money out of here.
Well, did he promise to double or triple your money, or?
Yeah, he's supposed to triple, double your money. And he used to come outside every so often and talk to the people and wait to win them. I used to see him there every day.
That's the first time I heard that a big downtown operator came out here to the quiet Garden City.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of money you do.
Of course. It sounds logical now that you say it.
There's a lot of rich, retired Italian people down there.
Of course,
and he took a lot of money out of the Italian.
Yeah, Watertown Street is right near Nonanton.
He took a lot of money out of there. He took a lot of money out of them people. A lot of money. A couple of friends of mine I know.
It's fascinating. I thought you had to go all the way downtown to be built, but he made it easy for people by having a...
They woke up when it was too late. He took a lot of money out of it.
It must have sounded logical to people when he first proposed
The
it.
way it was proposed, the way it was set up. You know, you don't get anything for nothing.
No.
And people thought they were going to get something for nothing, right? You're going to get a lot of money.
That's right.
Of course, the banks wasn't paying very much money on their money anyhow. But
This is in the middle of the 20s, right?
Oh, it was in the late 20s, yeah.
Late 20s, yeah.
But I wasn't here too long, and I tell you, a friend of mine from the bank, he says, Ike, when you get a chance, ride down Westcombe Street and look at the Ponzi down there. The people that were lined up. The Christ, they couldn't wait the bank open, the office opened up in the morning. There was a block long, them people, waiting to get in there. From Watertown Street and from Westcombe Street, alongside the church. I forget the name of the street.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That was a clever move for him to make it easy for retired people out
They
here to invest.
couldn't wait till the doors opened in the morning. I'll tell you something, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Now, I'll have to do some reading up on him. I think he was in business for at least 16 months, but maybe not here.
And he took a lot of money out of Newton.
Now, I don't think he served much time in jail, did he?
I don't know really what finally happened to him. I did.
He did serve some time.
Yeah, but not what he should have done.
And I thought maybe ultimately he was deported back to Europe.
Well, I don't know finally what happened to him, but I tell you something, I have to tell you, I know a couple of families that he took a lot of money off them.
That's sad.
A lot of money off.
And then the 1-2 punch, the depression probably happened right after that.
And the Wall Street crash was there.
In 29, yeah. He must have been shortly before. People...
Well, this was after the Wall Street crash. He was there.
I see.
Because I came up here in the Wall Street crash in 29.
That's right. You came in 29. No.
I'm telling you something. Things that's happened in this town. This is to me, it's the biggest sucker state in the United States.
Massachusetts, you think, is gullible.
You can sell them anything.
I remember you saying that before.
You can sell them anything. Anything.
You don't think wisdom has improved over the years that
And
you've been
it's
here?
the biggest corrupt state in the United States.
Well,
Politicians, the biggest corrupt state for politicians in the country. How many do you think of this phony guy running for president? His friends went to jail in this last couple of years, right?
oh, you mean Governor Dukakis?
Yeah. Biggest phony ever was running for office.
Can you remember some of the previous governors?
Oh, yeah, Curly, Tobin.
Did Curly have ever much of a presence campaigning in Newton? I would have thought he kept to downtown Boston.
Curly made a lot of money. Of course, she had that daughter Mary, you know. She married that Donnelly, the big advertising people.
Yeah.
And of course, then it was divorce.
Was it Donnelly? Donnelly Advertising? Yeah. I remember seeing this.
They were the big people.
Yeah.
And of course, she used to ride up to Wellesley, Weston every day up the Catholic University up there. She was drunk half of the time, Mary was. Jim Curley had a lot of trouble too, you know. He had a lot of trouble. I remember when he went to jail, he made a lot. He had a lot of trouble.
But then he came out to be reelected again, did he not?
Yeah, but I'm saying he had a lot of trouble. And all his family went bad too, you know. They all went bad. The kids went bad.
Well, it's
I tell you something. He made it, and he lost a lot of it. A friend of mine here in Newton, a good contractor. He had a niece working in a bank up in Canada. I know this man very well and his wife. And when his niece came down one summer for vacation, he made sure I met her. And she was talking about different people took up money from the States and put it in the bank up there.
What, were there better returns, better interest?
Well, people don't always worry about the written curve. They want to put it where people don't know where their money is.
That was the version of the Swiss banks back then, probably.
And that was just like the Swiss banks. How much? There's billions of dollars over them Swiss banks.
But back then, they put it in Canada.
But
this was during Prohibition?
she was telling me she was in the office this day, and this man and this lady came in. It was Curly's daughter. And they deposited $2 million in the bank. $2 million they deposited in America, up in their bank. And she says she never saw them, only once after that.
To withdraw?
She says she never remembered them drawing any money out. But she only saw them in the bank once after that.
That's interesting.
But she remembers the day they come in and he introduced himself as Governor Curley, and that was his daughter, and he wanted this and that. Anyhow, she was a very smart girl from Canada. But Curley had a lot of trouble. He had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he had a lot of children, and I believe just one is left. Now, I don't know if you read this in the paper. His mansion on Jamaica Pond.
They tried to turn it into a
City
museum,
of Boston History Museum,
but
yeah.
I don't think the deal went through. I don't think that deal went through.
The religious order did sell it to the city. The city did scrape up the money to buy it. Now, I think they're poking around for appropriations to restore it. So it's in limbo, if you know what I mean. And the last son, if I remember correctly, the one who was in the Catholic priesthood for a while,
Yeah, I know.
he seems to have hopes of being the curator. He was just in the paper about a month ago saying that he had hoped that he might be, having been born and brought up in the house, that he might have a post of a creator if the project ever got up off the ground.
That was a nice house.
I recall it had shamrocks in
All
the
of it,
shutters.
every shutter had a shamrocks in it.
Yeah. And it was right across from Jamaica Pond
I
in
know.
a very obvious location. Well, when you come right down to it, there is no museum in the city of Boston that deals exclusively with Boston history or greater Boston history. You know, there's like the various historical societies for smaller parts of Boston. Like out here in Newton, we have that Jackson Homestead. But I think it would be a good idea. Have you ever been over to the Jackson Homestead that's run by the Newton Historical Society? It's right across from Our Lady's.
I know.
Yeah.
But Curly had a lot of trouble. Had a lot of trouble with his family. You know, you get in this world what you give.
That's right. Now, he did give out a lot of benefits to people.
Yeah. But, you know, he was he was a very shrewd operator. He was a good speaker.
I think I remember him speaking in the 40s.
And don't forget, he'd steal a red-hot poker, too, that guy, Curly. He'd steal a red-hot poker. There's a lot of good stories about Curly, what he did. A lot of famous stories about him.
Do you remember any? I remember reading some, but they're probably fresher in your mind.
They tell a story about Of course, the city wanted a lot of picks and shovels and everything else for the highways and the snow plows and everything else. This trucker come in and probably unload 500 or 1,000 picks and shovels. Curly was signed a slip for it, or have the man sign for it. A couple hours later, the same trucker drive around the block and come back with the same load and signed again. You understand?
Yes.
In other words, the city of Boston was paying for 5 times more for the shovels than what they was getting, right?
Good grief.
That's just one story they used to tell about the picks and shovels, and during the city and the snow plows. Well, I knew a couple of friends of mine came from Lowell up there. Well, I knew them.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of trucks for snow plows.
That's right. I think the city always contracts ahead of time. Yeah.
I'll tell you something. They probably order 18 and 20 trucks, you know. There ought to be 2 of them operating.
With the snow plows.
But surely you get, you know, a big piece of the money off them, right?
Okay, and they would come from out of town to clean Boston streets, or...
I know that there was 2 Irish people, the 2 brothers, and they had a lot of equipment. Matter of fact, I had a couple of times I had a couple of drinks with them. 2 friends of mine, I met them, and we used to have a couple of drinks with them. Unbelievable. You know, Curly robbed it. He did a lot for the poor, but he robbed the poor, too. Don't worry about that.
Well, I think perhaps some people who don't have a lot of money tend to be gullible sometime. The one story I remember was about the cleaning ladies down at Boston City Hall. You know, the old marble floors. Well, he didn't think they should be on their hands and knees, so he gave them mops with handles, and that got them off their knees.
I tell you something, he was a shrewd. You know, he made a couple of big mistakes, and then when he went to jail, you know, that time, he made a couple of big mistakes. Big mistakes.
Well,
I tell you something. What he made never did him any good. He died, according to records, he died with not too wealthy, you know what I mean?
That's right.
And when he moved out of that house over across the street he lived on that street opposite the Arbor Way.
Yeah.
Up around the corner. And I'll tell you something. You know, a man went through what he did, and the offices he held, and the things he had his hands on all his life, to wind up like he wound up, I tell you, it's unbelievable. Yeah. I don't, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know.
I don't call a man smart to wind up the way he wound up.
That's right.
You understand? I don't think a man is smart. You know, the old story is ill-gotten gain gets you nothing, right?
Right.
And of course, there's a lot of stories, even the racetrack, Suffolk Downs. Every day, once a week or so, there used to be 2 races over there. They used to run just for him, make sure, you know, the horses won, right? You see what I mean? The horse.
Oh, you mean out of 8 or 10 on a card?
I mean, the races were set up for him to win, right? You understand?
Okay, yeah.
It tells a lot of stories. And Chief Justice Higgins, I knew him quite well. He lived around the corner on Pine Street there. He had a beautiful home.
The State Superior Court, was he?
Chief Justice Higgins. And of course I used to see him in Florida, and 3 or 4 nights a week when I was around, we used to go down to that Foxborough racetrack.
That was the Trotters, weren't they?
Yeah, and when Tobin was governor, my great friend Charlie Driscoll, the representative, he was chairman of judiciary under Dever, too.
Oh, yes.
He was the guy that put that bill through to get Tobin a license for the Foxborough racetrack. He was the guy that he was the fellow that got the license for the racetrack.
Well, Foxborough started in the 40s, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it was always a trotting track,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I never knew Tobin had anything to do with it.
Tobin had the license.
I see.
Tobin got the license for Fella Lixon had the women wrestlers. Another young man down on Market Street who was an undertaker. Sullivan. He had a little bit, kind of a bad leg. Personally, I was very thick with them people when Paul Bowser for Lexa, he had the women wrestlers. Him and Sullivan, the undertaker.
Boston Arena. Was it Boston Arena where they used to have the women wrestlers?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. This is coming back. This is like the late 40s and early 50s, right?
And there was a friend of mine that had an office at 40 Court Street. There was three of them. I was there almost every night when I was around down to Foxborough, and I used to go down to Chief Tickens, and a couple of friends of mine live on the Arbor Way. We used to go down. There was so much to be told about that, but
it's a little drive to Foxborough. You had to start early.
Not only that, Tobin had a brother, Jimmy, and there was a lot of trouble between Jimmy when Driscoll got the license okayed through the legislature.
Yeah.
This Jimmy...
Oh, she found you.
I did.
Yeah, there's Pat.
This Jimmy wanted 1/3 of the ownership of the racetrack.
Foxborough. Was it doing that well?
Before it opened up. After they got the license.
Yeah.
He wanted 1/3 of the ownership of the track.
My word.
There was a lot of discussion over it. There's a lot of trouble with him and the governor, Tobin. That Jimmy was a tough man to get along with after they got the license, see?
Yeah, yeah.
But it was too bad. That Tobin was a smart man. He was a good governor.
Well, he had health problems too eventually, right?
Yeah. Then he was a great friend of Truman's.
Yeah, yeah. Now, he was Secretary of the
Labor.
Navy. You're right.
Jimmy Wolanski had the Cleveland Circle Grill. Jimmy Wolanski had the Coconut Grove.
My God, the Coconut Grove. Of course I remember the Coconut Grove.
All right. Jimmy Wolanski made a fortune through Tobin getting all these people in from the foreign countries. He made a fortune. Tobin had a table, Cleveland Circle Grill, on the second floor. He was there almost every night when he was around.
Sort of his unofficial office?
No, that's where he ate, meet his friends. But Jimmy Wolanski made a lot of money through Tobin, getting these people in from the foreign countries.
Well, you mean this is after the war immigration, right? Yeah.
Made a fortune. He used to go to Washington, come every day, almost every day. Come back with the numbers. A friend of mine, very good friend of mine, of course I eat a lot of meals over Wolanski then with Driscoll and Judge Taylor and them people.
Yeah.
He wanted to get a niece in. Jimmy Wolanski wanted $4,000 on the table. $4,000. This he wanted from his old lawyer, who was a great friend of mine.
I see.
Jimmy Wolanski's lawyer was a great friend of mine. He was my lawyer too. But I'm saying, $4,000 he wouldn't move.
Well, if this
Jimmy
is right after World War II.
And Jimmy Wolanski got what he deserved.
What happened to him?
Well, they accused of killing and shooting that Breen downtown, in his bar room there. He was with a thief all his life, that will is.
Interesting, no.
Yeah, but his brother Barney, I think his brother Barney died in jail. But
It's
things were different them days than they are today.
well, let's say, well, maybe in some ways people were more obvious in their methods, and in some ways they were a little more discreet. I'm still surprised at some things you see public people doing.
Things that happened them days, there was more things happened them days, really, than there is today. There's a lot of things happen today because there weren't so many big thieves around them days, right?
Right, but, well, then again, maybe back then thieves thought that their livelihood depended on being skillful and not everybody knowing their business.
I think that Boston is the worst city in the country.
Well, I must say, I've lived elsewhere, and there are things, perhaps they're happening more discreetly, but in Boston things tend to become more obvious.
The worst corrupt place in the United States is Massachusetts. The only good thing in Massachusetts, the highway takes you out of here.
Okay, but my goodness, you've spent a lot of time here since 1929.
Look at, there's a lot of things I did and happened in my days there that could never happen again, but I'm saying, what I've seen, what has happened, it's the biggest corrupt state in the United States. It's the highest tax state. They talk about this phony guy trying to be president of the United States.
Yeah. Well, it'll be
I wouldn't
interesting.
trust him opening or shutting the door. He's been a phony and a faker all his life. Listen, I've been a big Democrat all my life. I voted for Wilson the first time he ran for governor.
Oh, I remember you telling me about Wilson meeting him at Princeton.
Yeah.
Yes. Was that the
I
first
used to
time
run-
you voted?
I used to run errands for a French cleaner in Darn. I used to go there a couple times a week, him and Henry Van Dyke and Grover Cleveland's house in Princeton. Look at, they talk about Jersey being corrupt. Way back years ago, you know, around Hoboken, those places, it was very bad.
Yeah, adjacent to New York City, right.
We had a man in Jersey, Frank Hague, the politician, who run that Democratic Party for years and years over there. He controlled the state of New Jersey for years. I'll tell you something. There was another smart man, Frank Hague. They don't know what it was to be a Republican in the state of New Jersey for years. Now there's got a Republican governor.
And it's got a, you know, I thought I read it's got a very good reputation for being a middle of the road representative of all the United States. It's not too much either way. And politically it seems to be relatively stable.
Well,
New Jersey currently?
I'll tell you something. Now they got a Republican governor over there, and they put in that gambling down in Atlantic City.
Yes, which didn't work out too well.
The greatest playground in the world was Atlantic City for years.
But it was family oriented.
See? They ruined it by putting the gambling in there.
No.
Many a night and day I danced at Young's $1 Million Pier down there. Many a night.
I remember it in the middle 50s as still being rather nice, but I spent some time at Ocean City.
Yeah, it's a great place, Ocean.
That was more family-oriented and had
That
those,
was a great place, Ocean City.
the Victorian hotels, and it was more family.
And the Traymore Hotel used to be on the boardwalk in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Jimmy Walker used to stay there. But I'll say, they ruined Atlantic City. Even the Miss America contest the other night down there. It's not the same.
No, I think everybody's disappointed in what happened to gambling. Do you recall when they were going to put gambling in Nantasket Beach?
They ruined a lot of properties. They took a lot of homes away from people. Now, gambling. Of course, I guess they've made some money, but a couple of good old hotels are still there, Haddon Hall, and a couple more of them, but that was the greatest resort in the United States, Atlantic City.
That's right. Well, before Florida was developed, of course. It was so close
Well,
to
they built Florida backwards. They built it backwards. They built everything right up to the water instead of putting a boardwalk all along Miami Beach like Atlantic City.
Yeah.
No, they used every piece of ground, you know what I mean, for money purposes. They developed Miami backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is right on the water.
You're right.
Instead of making a boardwalk and having the stores like in Atlantic City, you know, along the front.
Yeah.
But they wanted it.
Well, they were very greedy for beachfront property, which is they have to keep.
I was there. I was there when they were selling lots on Miami Beach.
Goodness, I think the lots themselves are about half as big as they were, unless they truck in more sand every year.
I'll tell you something. I was good there many years in Florida. They ruined Florida. Florida will never be the same Florida. Never. Never. And that phony president we had, Jimmy Carter, it'll never be the same Florida. Never. Now between the Hessians, the Cubans, and all that stuff, never be the same Florida. Don't tell me about Florida.
Yeah, I haven't been there since 1960, so I have absolutely no idea, but I imagine it's changed quite a bit with all the influx of population.
It'll never be the same Florida. Never.
It's interesting that you saw it before it was built up.
Years ago when they built Berdeen's down there, Berdeen's, you know, Flagler Street, you know, they had the most beautiful girls in the world worked in that store.
That's the department store, as I recall, right?
Police. People used to just to go in there and walk around just to look at the girls. They had the most beautiful girls in the world worked in that store when they first opened it up. Of course, they had another place over on the beach, too. But
it's interesting. When you talked about gambling, Florida never had official gambling, but you could always go offshore to the Bahamas.
That's right.
Now, do you recall a few years ago how they were going to put a casino on Nantasket Beach?
And of course, they had a big accident when the planes went down there and lost a lot of people, too, going down. But, you know, wherever there's big money, there's thievery.
Of course, of course.
Wherever there's big, I don't care what it is. Like that brokerage business today. How many of these guys are going to go to jail, right?
Well,
all these big brokers have. Wherever there's big money, there's thievery.
It seems as if Newton over the years, though, has been relatively quiet because not much business has gone on here.
Look, I knew Bob Crane when he went to Boston College. He had a little house out here off of Market Street. And out on the side porch there was a wash tubs and everything else. The guy didn't have a pot to sit down on. The guy's made a lot of money. He's made a lot of money.
Oh, state treasurer, yeah.
Made a lot of money. Between the lottery, he owns a lot of property in Florida. He owns a lot of condominiums. I knew when he didn't have a pot to sit down on.
Yes, yes. That's interesting. And he lived here in Newton?
Wherever there's big money, there's thievery.
He certainly has been in office a long time. Yeah.
The banks made a lot of money off of him, too. And he made a lot of money off the bank.
Oh, because he's responsible for state accounts. Yeah.
Wherever there's big money, there's thievery.
A lot of interesting people have come through Newton.
You know, I'm not that smart, and not that stupid.
But you're still here.
But I'm telling you, you can sell them anything.
That's what you said before about Massachusetts.
You can sell them anything. Yeah.
It's interesting.
What little bit I knew, I didn't learn in Massachusetts. I had a little education before I come up here, and I never went to school very long either.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, this is the biggest, phoniest state in the United States. All I think you got here is phonies, beggars, and thieves. That's all that's here in this state.
Well, it must keep you entertained.
The biggest corrupt state in the United States.
It seems interesting, though.
I have been a big Democrat all my life. I worked for them. I gave them money all my life. There isn't a Democrat I'd vote for. That includes Kennedy, too.
Oh, you mean the current Senator Ted Kennedy, yeah. There's a younger one now, Robert Kennedy's.
Yeah, running in Congress, but I'm saying.
Yeah, he's in Congress now.
Anybody else but Ted Kennedy with that girl with the chip and quitting deal, he'd been in prison for 20 years, right?
That was always unfortunate. Is there coffee or anything that you might want to get? You're probably getting tired.
No, I don't want. I just had my breakfast.
Okay.
But I'm saying.
Yes.
It shows you what money can do. Money, right?
Oh, yeah. Money is a cushion against the harsh reality.
And not only
of
that,
life.
he took care of that family in Jersey very well. The daughter, you know, the family of that daughter, right? I guess he gave them plenty, which he had to.
Wow, yeah.
But
and there are other stories you hear as well.
I know a lot of stories. He could never be elected president of the United States if he lived to be a million.
Well, no, I think he's given up that aspect.
Well, he knew he could never be elected.
It's not. The chapter put the what's the family? The
Ambassador, right?
to
England.
Britain. Yeah.
Britain. All right. There was big headlines, right?
Right.
Jimmy Roosevelt wanted to get in on the part of the Scotch deal with Kennedy, with Joe Kennedy. Anyhow, my brother, one of them, was a head engineer for the Port Authority of New York. He built the Holland Tunnel, Washington Bridge, and all that stuff. He had 39 years. Drafting engineer. He was part of the brains of it. Joe Kennedy had 3 floors of that office building, which is a tremendous big building in New York, loaded with scotch. The Port Authority building in New York. Joe Kennedy had 3 floors loaded with scotch.
Well, a pretty safe place. He could keep his eye on it,
All
right?
right.
Okay.
And there's thousands and thousands of people working that building. Thousands and thousands of people. He sold more liquor every day out of that place than all the liquor stores in New York put together. People taking it out. The way they
Well,
used.
of course, they would have had to have been speakeasies at the time.
All right. But I'm saying, then when it came time to get through, when he got it, the headlines was this big. When he got through, because he didn't want to go through with Roosevelt and make the same deal, you know what I mean? Put Jimmy in with the part of it. The headlines was that big when Joe Kennedy retired. Was that big?
Ah,
You understand?
yes, I understand.
But, and there was a man lived up here on Commonwealth Avenue, was a New England representative for Joe Kennedy in his Scotch. He was a great friend of Joe's, and I happen to know him personally. He had charge of all Scotch east of the Mississippi.
Gee, it's hard to think of speakeasies in Newton. Did
And-
they have any here?
Speakeasies?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Were they located in Newton Corner?
No, there was down around, down the lake. There was a couple of them down the lake. And we had a girl.
Was it pretty obvious, or did you have to know somebody to get in?
We had a girl here who was Miss Massachusetts. She was the most beautiful thing you ever looked at. She died a drunken bum. I'm sure to say that.
Yeah.
And she was always in one of these speakeasies down the lake. Look at this is not the holiest city in the country, you know.
I'm beginning to think that. It's just that maybe it's...
There's more racketeers up in Chester Hill and Brookline. All these, what do they call it? The Jewish mafia, the Greek mafia, the Irish mafia. You understand what I mean?
Well, I guess they are like nice neighborhoods.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of corrupt people living up this thing. That is, place is loaded with them. Loaded with them.
It's interesting that you say that, especially when you brought up prohibition and the...
This place is loaded with them. Bookmakers, racketeers, place is loaded with them. I know, because I gamble every day myself. I'm saying.
Yeah.
Place is loaded with them.
Well, there hasn't been a neighborhood center that I can think of that hasn't had one or two bookies around. You know, I guess they perform a public service when you don't have off-track.
I don't want, listen, let me tell you something. I'm no saint. I've never been a saint. I don't profess to be a saint.
Yeah.
I'm pretty plain spoken. I tell it as it is, right?
That's why it's so much fun to talk to you.
I'm telling you something. I tell it as it is, right?
Yes.
And I've been here and I've dealt with a lot of good people in this town and some pretty tough ones too, I mean. But I'm saying, unbelievable. Unbelievable. If I was to tell you my life since I've been here, I'll tell you something. It would fill 2 newspapers.
Yes.
But I'm saying, experience, you can't buy experience, you have to go through it. I tell you something. The biggest phonies in the country, they're right here.
It's interesting from your perspective, certainly, having been here since 1929.
Biggest phonies and fakers in the country, they're right here in Massachusetts. That's my opinion.
Well, and coming from 60 years of experience, probably have a very good basis for it.
What little I knew, I had the education before I came here. And I never went to college. I was put out of school when I was 11 years old anyhow. Then I went to night school.
You went to plumbing? You went into plumbing, was it?
I was thrown out of school when I was 11 years old. And they never took me back. I went to night school. But I met some nice people by day and I met some tough ones.
Well, if you spent most of the year here in Massachusetts for the last 60 years,
well,
and you said that you used to go to Florida in the summer?
I was in Florida for 64 years. Every year since I was 25 up to 4 years ago.
Well, that's for the winter season, for the winter, right?
I was away having a time.
But it made a nice contrast.
You
It
know,
must have been a very good contrast with Massachusetts.
well, I was pretty lucky. I met the good people. I met the right people.
Good. That's all. I think you told me before, it's not what you know, it's who you
It
know.
isn't what you know, it's who you know. That's right. I met some people that gave me some good inside tips on some good stocks I had, and I did very, very well with them. I had never sold a share of stock till 4 years ago. I paid the government a fortune in this state. But I don't want to talk about it. I met the right people. I met the right people at the right place at the right time.
It's not many people that I've ever known that can say that.
Well, I was pretty lucky.
That's good. That's good.
And I bought and sold some good real estate here. Of course,
Newton, you told me about the changing values in Newton. You said that you had a place down at...
I had a good business in Jersey before I moved up here.
But tell me about the different places in Newton that you've lived.
Eh?
What have been the different places in Newton that you've lived?
Did I live?
You're over here at Vernon Court now, but before
I lived
that?
over on Vernon Street for 27 years. Over on Battery Street for 27 years.
I've always loved Ralph Prince.
And before then?
I was here. Well, 20, I've been here 27. I first stayed with a friend of mine over in Waltham. Then I lived on Cherry Street in Waltham. Then I lived in the place up here on Center Street opposite Newtonville Avenue. Lovely lady, had a nice place there. But all together now, 27, 42, between Ellery Street and over here, there was two places I've lived, been there 45 years, those two places.
Yes. So there must have been an attraction to Newton. It always seems to me as if it was a nice place to live, as long as you didn't have to stay there all day.
According to what they claim, I don't know what it's all about. Newton, city of Newton, supposed to be the wealthiest city in the country per capita. Did you ever know that?
I had heard that about Newton in the past, but I think now some cities in Massachusetts might have surpassed it, like Weston.
Well, they had a great name, you know. The wealthiest city in the country per capita was Newton.
I would say maybe 20 years ago, probably.
Like the Fellines and all them, they were born and raised in Newton, right? Mrs. Felline, I knew her very well.
Oh, of the Feline department store.
But there's a lot of wealthy people here.
Well, I'm just trying to think of some of the...
Eben Ellison, the wealthiest leather man in the world, lived right up the street here.
Leather.
Eben Ellison.
Ellison. Okay. And his business was?
Leather.
Oh, of course. Boston used to be the leather capital of the world.
That's right. He was the wealthiest leather man in the country. And Stanley Steamer.
Yes, I've heard about him.
His house is up here off of Waverly Avenue. It's a beautiful home. It still looks like brand new.
They started the business here.
Stanley Steamer.
There have been several books written about the development of that company.
And let me see who else was here. A lot of
well, you know who just died a few years ago? Mr. Draper, the scientist who had the who started the Draper Laboratory at MIT, which is now a separate research institution. I think his children still live in right around here in Newton Corner. Yeah. Currently, but I think it's getting really so diverse. It's more like the UN.
I got some good, wealthy Jewish friends. One of them just left last week to go to having $10,000, a new bathroom put in for $10,000, so they went to Italy for 9-10 days while they're putting in a new bathroom. Their husband paid a lot of money. And of course,
It's wonderful how, people like a city. The Garden City, it's called.
The Garden City, that's right. Coming in from New York, every highway you hit is the Garden City, the Garden City.
There are a lot of
interesting, though, that you said...
What I'm trying to say, no disrespect, because I got some good Jewish friends
Yeah.
here. It's overly populated with Jewish people. You understand what I mean?
Well, there's a concentration here in this state.
But a lot of them have moved out of here, too. A lot of people who had beautiful homes moved out of here on that. You have this Jewish mayor up there. If he had his just Jews, he'd went to prison on that deal they had with his secretary, I'm saying. But,
Oh, yes, that was in the paper.
well, listen, I tell you something. Listen. When you get to the point, it's like the Democrats controlling the state of Massachusetts. It's all one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? It's all one-sided.
You want more diversity. Yeah.
There's too much, it's too much one way, which is no good. I call it Little Israel. And it is, Little Israel.
There are so many new people moving into
I have friends,
Britain, however.
I have friends of mine that are very wealthy. Some of them are 80 years old. They're still working. Still working.
Well, across the street do you know Mr. Weber, the stockbroker? Mr. Weber, the stockbroker. He comes through the library every day to get a drink of water and to call his home. I believe he goes into Boston every day to his stock office. And I remember reading a little piece about him in the paper that said he's been a stockbroker since before the crash.
And not only that,
And-
you take this same element, right?
Yeah.
Like Mrs. Dushan. Mrs. Dushan, Eddie Dushan's aunt,
Yes.
the famous favorite. She still has the bank shop over here next to Berkey's drugstore. 80 years of age, a lovely person.
She's Eddie Dushan's aunt?
Eddie Dushan.
Yeah.
Mrs. Dushan is Eddie Dushan's aunt. They hire their own. You understand?
Yes.
They work till they die, right?
I think that keeps people going.
You understand what I'm saying? I got some good Jewish friends, but I'm saying they hire their own. You understand?
I think we do. It's interesting, though. There's so many different groups coming in. You see the school children in the library. You have a lot of people who have just come here from Russia. You have a lot of people from Hong Kong. And it's amazing to me how many people find Newton attractive. I think it's because of the good school system. Anybody with a family wants a good public school. Also, there are a lot of churches here. And it's a good family town. Crime rate seems to be low. Do you recall it's always been relatively free of violent crime? That's a big attraction for people looking to buy a house. But as you said,
I'll never change my mind. I say this is the biggest corrupt state in the United States. I say the only thing good in the state is the highway gets you out here, and that costs you money. Right?
that'll cost the turnpike.
Right?
Yep. And we'll still pay all the time. I think that was supposed to be paid off a while ago, but they're still collecting tolls on that turnpike. You thought the turnpike was a relatively good thing for Newton Corner, right?
It was a good thing for the state.
Yeah.
Of course, all you got in Boston, the streets are all alleys anyhow. You understand what I mean?
That's
They're all
right.
like alleys. Whoever laid out that state laid it.
Well, the cows did. The cows
cow paths.
That's the nice thing about Newton. Parts of Newton were carefully planned. You know, the streets are straight.
The Boston Tea Party. Jeez, I'll tell you something.
1773, I think.
You know, there's one place I hate to go, that's Boston. I hate to go to Boston. Of course, for years I went to the barber shop at the Copley Plaza Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went for the last 18 years to the Parker House, and my great friend in there, he made so much he retired. I hate to go to Boston. I hate to
Don't
go.
like the barber shops around here? Well, where is there one? Did there used to be one here in Newton Corner?
Now I go up in Newton Center opposite the station up there. But I'm saying, I don't know.
I bet you used to be able to get everything here in Newton Corner before the turnpike came through.
I never had my hair cut in Newton Corner in my life.
But there were barber shops here.
There were
before.
6 of them.
In Newton Corner?
There were 6 drugstores.
Good grief. Oh, yeah, well, that whole area that they took for the turnpike.
There were 6 drugstores and 6 barber shops.
I wouldn't be surprised. And must have been all kinds of food stores.
They took a lot of stores away from me when they built that turnpike. You know.
And of course, you mentioned the theater was gone.
The next to the theater there was a little restaurant, lunch counter, barber shop, Edison's, Dewey's Market, Park Snow's, Lincoln's Big Drugstore. That's just over on that side.
Yeah.
Round the corner had Mac's Smoke Shop. He did more business than all the stores in Newton put together. Mac's Smoke Shop. It wasn't the cleanest place, but the business he did in there. Good to people.
Yeah.
All that stuff has gone away from here.
Now, wasn't there a set of apartments on top?
Yeah.
There are a lot of interesting people living there.
They were loaded with mice and rats and everything else.
They were really old apartments, but there are a lot of interesting
very
people.
old, very old.
I wonder where all those people went when they took that building.
Then they tore the place down, they built a new place, and the place been empty for 4 years ever
You're
since
right.
they built it.
You're right. And the place across from it as well.
It's overbuilt. They took the post office away from Newton Court, they put it almost down to Watertown, right?
That's right. It's on the Watertown line. Right.
Look at wherever there's big money, there's thievery. All right?
Yeah.
Politicians, right?
Right.
Even take the post office away from here, right? Move it halfway to Watertown, right? You understand?
But this block stayed. The one we're sitting in right now.
The Elks own this. When they put the turnpike through, the turnpike offered them $585,000 to the Elks for this property.
Right. This whole block.
We had a mayor here, Shagnon, very, very good friend of mine, very good friend of mine. He owned the drugstore. Him and the mayor were very, half of the political stuff was done right in that drugstore, right? You want the job on the police department, half of the business was done in that drugstore, right? All right. When these people retired and got through, they moved to New Hampshire. They didn't stay here in Massachusetts. They moved to New Hampshire.
Oh.
But, as I say, that property over there, they moved it. In order to make the apartments, and what they did over there, they had to take the post office building, right?
Right.
And they moved it. That's what politics does, you understand? If you live to be a million, you'll have nothing in this town but a Jewish mayor. You'll never have anything but a Jewish mayor. Because they have the population, you understand? And they stick together like that. They stick together, right? You understand?
Yeah. But it looks like a lot of people property was taken for that turnpike, all the way through Newton, even into West Newton.
Well, they didn't take that many. They took a lot away into Boston. They took a lot into Boston. But
Oh, yeah. It's funny.
they were for 8-10 years trying to get that thing put through there, right?
Right, yeah.
Norbica Park, they took that away up there. I mean, everything was changed.
You remember the Totem Pole Ballroom?
Oh, I used to dance up there. But you talk about politics. Politics is a big power.
It's funny because when I've talked to people before, they say that
Politics.
the turnpike was one of the big issues in this town that a lot of people disagreed on.
Instead of putting the hotel across the street, they should put up there where the Chevrolet is, right?
Further up on Washington
And they
Street.
still could have kept all them stores here. You know, we had beautiful bowling alleys and everything else over here on Washington Street. Bowling alleys. General Electric had a place. Moore's hardware store. Across the street, Liggett's drugstore, Park Snow's, all them stores on the other side of Radical. You realize how much business they took out of New Corner? They put that...
Quite a bit.
There's some 5 or 6 liquor licenses, I think, at least 4 or 5, whatever became of them.
That's interesting. That's right. Somebody still owns them. Oh, maybe the new hotel took them. And there are a few new hotels. There's a new hotel on the site of Norbica Park.
You know, I remember years ago, too, I mean, during the war, if it wasn't for Hood Milk, there would never have been the Howard Johnson. They would have walked off the map. It was Hood's Milk went to the front, and they bailed Hood Johnson out. They gave him money to keep him going during the war.
Hood bankrolled Howard Johnson.
If it wasn't for Hood's Milk years ago, there would never have been any more Howard Johnsons.
Then, of course, I don't even know who owns Howard Johnson's anymore.
I don't know who owns it.
It's changed hands.
Now they've spent a fortune over there. They work a night and day.
Redoing
On
it,
the
yeah.
inside and outside, they could build a new hotel while there's money they're spending over there. And they
Yeah.
work nights, so they work over there late at nights.
I hear that little buzzing, which means they're taking the insides out. You hear it all the time. It means they're gutting the inside. So you didn't see the new buildings coming with the turnpike as being a benefit for Newton Corner, because all the business is gone.
Down here where you get the bus to go to Boston, they built
Right.
that big building.
Right.
They're running it out, you know, with the offices.
That's been empty for a while.
Tershon just spent $8 million supposed to build that new building in
Yeah.
back of his building there. I go to the dentist over there. A month ago, there was only 3 people in the new building, but they did a beautiful job renovating that, building a new building. But I'm saying, the place is overbuilt.
It doesn't seem as if they're getting people as tenants.
This place is like a lot of places, overbuilt. Like I said before, I got a nephew out in Denver. Of course, I was there several times myself, but I'm saying, he said the gorgeous condominiums and the office buildings and so forth, you can't pay people to move into them.
This is in Denver. Oh, yeah. I think the oil...
It's overbuilt.
Right. I think they had great hopes for more oil money in and around Denver.
Now, you take that outfit from Texas, you know, they're building up there where that eating place used to be on top of the avenue, you know, that big chain of stores used to be up there, famous for the lobsters. They built a big place down on the boulevard in Miami. What's the name of that big food chain? They're building a new place over there where that...
Marriott?
Huh?
Is it the Marriott?
No, that... They always had their big sales in the basement of Feline's. That big store, they got that big place down at
Neiman Marcus? Neiman Marcus?
Yeah. They built that big store down in Copley, right?
Right.
All right. Now
Copley
they're
place.
building that place over there. What's the name of that eating place?
Chestnut Hill? No.
Yeah, on Chestnut Hill,
Chestnut Hill Mall, right.
above the mall.
Okay.
Where that eating place used to be for years.
Okay. There was a Schraff's over there.
No, not shrimp.
There was Illegal Seafoods.
No.
Yeah. But
This
the
place had
restaurant.
chains of restaurants all over the
Yeah, I
state.
can't think of what it may be.
Oh, Christ.
Anyway, did they go out of business?
Well, this is Neighbors Marcus. They're building a new building there.
On the old site.
Where that eating place used to be.
So that end of Newton, that part of Chestnut Hill has changed.
Now it's up above on the right hand.
Yeah, on the Brookline, Boston side. Yeah. Now, Newton Center has certainly grown.
You know, you don't know who owns what today. You don't know.
True. It's very hard to figure out which conglomerate.
You don't know who owns what today. You don't know what.
No. It seems, though, in Newton Center, there are a lot of Newton-owned businesses. It seems as if more things went up to Newton Center after they left Newton Corner. Because I think in 20 or 30 years, Newton Center has really gotten a lot
Now,
more
you know,
business.
There's a building over there been empty for 4 years. 4 years.
The new one, yeah.
4 years. They take it off for tax purpose. They take the tax for tax purpose. 4 years.
It seems amazing.
Overbuilt.
Now, for shopping, people around here don't have too many.
You can't even buy a pair of shoes or a pair of socks at Newton Corner.
Right? There is no place.
You can't buy a pair of socks or a pair of shoes.
Except for the Duchin store that you mentioned. That has women's wear, but not all women's wear. Just certain things.
You can't buy a pair of shoes for a man or a
You're
man.
right. You're absolutely right. I'm just trying to think further over in Watertown Square. Has only eating places and banks.
Christ, you haven't got a good eating place in Newton Corner, right?
Well, I'm trying to think now.
When they got rid of the Red Coach Grill, they closed up the
You're
business.
right. I loved the Red Coach Grill. Oh, weren't they nice restaurants? There was one in downtown Boston we always used to go to.
That originally started out in Wayland, you know. That first place was in Wayland. They originally came from Wayland.
They had the big red coach out in front, as I recall. That must have been the original.
That was the original place.
Yeah. I remember that.
They had a big place next to Jordan Marsh out of Biscayne Boulevard, right on the opposite corner.
In Florida?
Sure. And the fellow
Did they go down that far?
Yeah. And the fellow that opened up the place, the manager, over where Tershaw's block is there.
Right. Always.
This was not too many years ago. The man who managed the place in Florida, right next to Jordan Marsh on Biscayne Boulevard.
Right.
He opened up the bar room over here, over in Tershaw's building. I used to go in there and have a sandwich and have a glass of beer with him. The fellow who opened up the place in Florida for the Red Coast Grill, he opened up a bar room over there.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I used to go and talk to him almost every
Well,
day.
it looks like,
Because I used to see him at Florida. Lots of times we used to stop in there, right? Down at Red Coast Grill in Miami.
oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
never even knew they were down there. Were there any points in between here? Were they just
And of
Massachusetts
course, you know,
and Florida?
They were along the highways too, you know, from here in New York, and there was quite a few of the Red Coast
In
Grill.
New England, right. But I don't think like in the middle Atlantic states.
Oh, yeah, they was right. You've been in Florida, where the Jordan Marsh is down on Biscuit.
yeah.
On the same side of the street, on the corner right opposite of it, they had the Red Coast Grill.
See, I never realized they were that big.
What a business they used to do in there. What a business they did in that place. Right on the same side of the street. Now that J.C. Penney, and you think it belongs to that Jordan Marsh. What a building they built right next to Jordan Marsh. They spent billions and billions and billions of dollars. They could park 3,000 cars in there and take them off the streets. Oh, they got everything in that place.
Well, Miami seems to be quite a bit overbuilt.
Oh, yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any more room in Newton for building.
Well, you know, I remember years ago you could walk down the street and get an automobile full of coconuts. You can't find a coconut today in 5 city blocks on the streets. You know what I mean? Cause
You're talking about Florida.
Yeah.
You mean there were that many trees?
You could walk down, you know, and always pick up a half a dozen or a dozen coconuts. Today you couldn't find a coconut in 5 blocks, right?
I don't think they even have those trees between the hurricanes
The biggest
and
part of the
pollution.
coconuts they get in Florida today, they import them.
You're absolutely right.
Sure.
I don't think they have coconut palms in
I
Florida
remember years
anymore.
ago they were famous down there making a coconut lamp, the coconut lamp.
With a hollowed out coconut shell, right.
Many of them I used to ship back and bring back to my friends and give it to them. Beautiful coconut lamps. They have to go down the islands and bring back to find the coconuts.
I don't think the coconut can grow with so much pollution. There was one other thing I wanted to ask you about. It's getting to be 20 of 11. I've got to get going back to the library. I wanted to thank you very much, you know.
Well,
maybe we'll talk again sometime.